Strive and Thrive is a collection of discussions featuring guests from various fields, focused on guiding entrepreneurs in creating businesses that excel in every aspect: people, planet, and profit. Throughout the series, you can join us, Romesh and Mike, as we explore relevant topics with our guests which can help businesses thrive.
Romesh and I met while I was supporting a client transforming their business, and I needed finance director support and reached out to him and his team. Since then, we've become good friends who share a passion for business and entrepreneurship. If you like today's discussion, then you want to subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels. Hi everyone, and welcome to this edition of Strive and Thrive. And today I'd like to invite on the show Kayla Kerr. So thank you very much for joining us, Kayla.
Afternoon. How are we doing?
Yeah, really good to have you on today.
Hi,
Really
Kayla.
lovely to be here.
Yeah,
Hi,
lovely.
Romesh. How are
lovely,
you?
lovely to have you on. Looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, brilliant. So let me do a quick introduction to Kayla because I've known her for a number of years. So Kayla's a marketeer, and I've worked with a number of founders, including for her sins myself, and has now gone on her own little journey of setting up her own company. So we've talked a lot on Strive and Thrive in the last few episodes about AI, marketing, but also trying to persuade new entrepreneurs and founders to go on the journey themselves. So I'm looking forward to going through this episode and learning through Kayla's personal experience. So really looking forward to this. So Kayla, as an introduction, could you give us an overview in a minute or so how you've got where you've got to?
Yeah, so I have always been in marketing. It was my first job out of university. Was straight into a marketing assistant role within one of the big banks. I won't name which one. And that has really kind of given me my grounding. I did an English degree at uni, and so it's kind of always been a passion piece for me, writing words and all of that. So yeah, I've had a very fun and interesting and extremely varied kind of 20-year career at this point, including a stint with Mike, of course. And yeah, it's I kind of worked my way up to head of marketing, VP marketing level within a number of roles before, yes, in October 2024, deciding to set up my own consultancy and kind of make my experience work for me on my own terms, which is probably something I'd wanted to do for a little while, but just kind of, decided to strike out there and do it.
Lovely, thank you. Thanks, Kayla. Thanks for giving us a very nice summary of what you've been up to. So before I deep dive into some of these questions, I was commenting earlier, I think you've got a lovely background there. And the first one thing I'd like to say, you've got lots of medals. So, this is for the benefit of our listeners who won't be able to see. You've got at least 4, 5, 6 medals. So what are they for? What have you been winning?
There's a number more, in fact. So last year I did 25 in 25, which was a challenge I set myself. It was my 40th year. And so I ran 25 races in 2025 for Tommy's, the baby charity. I have a number of friends who've been impacted with miscarriage, difficulties with, pregnancies and kind of early birth stuff. And that's the one thing that I wanted to do something for. And I wanted to kind of use my landmark year as a bit of a fundraiser. As a bit of an excuse to get up and get moving. So yeah, I ran 225 kilometers in total, but of course, like goodness. 5Ks and 2 half marathons. I haven't taken on the marathon yet, but at some point I will. So yeah, this is my husband made me a nice little medal board. I've got my personal bests on there. I've got all my medals. So yeah, it's just a nice little fun thing, and I keep it in front of my desk to remind me that I can do really hard things.
That's really cool and very inspiring. I really like that. Well done to you, and what an amazing cause as well. So yeah, brilliant. Okay, good. So curiosity on that now sated. let's dive into you and your journey. So yeah, it sounds like you've had and developed all of this expertise in this space of marketing. And what made you kind of think about setting up your own business and becoming a founder? What gave you the confidence to make the leap?
So it was really a kind of if not now when type of moment for me. I back in 2023 I was in a VP marketing role for an early stage startup, fantastic early stage startup that I really love. But we were talking about March 2023 here, and so there was a number of like impacting the whole industry. Really, things were changing. It was like 6 months post ChatGPT coming in. There was a big kind of moment for a lot, and it was in HR tech, recruitment tech industry, and so I was impacted by layoffs. My team were actually at the time, I was running a team of 5, and so early stage startup life is just how it sometimes is. And so, yeah, that's when I started to think about, could I do this? Could I do this on my own? Could I make it work? I didn't actually do it on my own at that point. I took another role. And so as is quite often the case with a number of founders that I speak to, you actually stick to that kind of certainty and that security for a little bit longer, until your brain really does tell you, no, you have to do this now. And a big catalyst for me actually at the time, maybe mid 2024, was a number of kind of friends and family in my life kind of got sick, got various health challenges, issues. And that was the kind of turning point for me of like, I don't think I really care about marketing for someone else anymore. I'm finding it really difficult to muster up the energy for it, which is a really difficult place to be as a marketer, because you really have to believe fully in whatever it is you're doing. You've got to be fully drinking the Kool-Aid, as it were. And so that was the moment for me where I was just like, yeah, you know what, let's just do this. And I sent a very memorable text to my husband saying, look, if this was my last paycheck, could we make it work while I set up my own thing? And thankfully he was like, yeah, absolutely, like, let's do it.
That's a great story. I kind of identify with many things that you said there, and it's true, isn't it? Like that regular salary, we've talked about it before. It is like crack cocaine. It's just completely addictive, and you don't want to kind of wrest yourself away from it. Yeah. When it's something you've been used to for such a long time. So very well done to you. And something you said there, which I think is really important, and certainly for me, was that you had the support of your husband, your partner.
Yeah. And I think that's right. I think certainly with those of us who get to a senior enough level, and your path is then managing people and all of this kind of thing. And I say to myself 2 things. I wanted to be my own boss, but crucially I didn't want to be anyone else's boss at the time. And it took all of those things to align for me to give me the push to do it, because it does sometimes just take a push out of that security and out of that stability. And you almost have to wait for it to be that the risk of not doing this now is greater than the risk of doing it. And that's certainly what it was for me. I don't know about both of you.
Oh, that's really good. Mike, go ahead. Tell us about your transition to becoming an owner of your own business.
Kayla knows a little bit about my story, but I think I've always wanted to do it, as per your point, Kayla, but it does require an external factor to give you that push. And the time when Kayla and I worked together, it was the right time for me to move on. And I think that was the point I went, I either go for another corporate job or this is my chance to do it. And I you talked about health scares. I talked about work related. There's usually some sort of external trigger, and you've got to just sort of do that because I think if you rationalize it a little bit too much, you get too nervous because there's too many unknowns. And yes, there's the crack cocaine of salary, but there's also, can I sell? Can I market? Do I know enough people for customers? Am I good enough even is the kind of personal debate that you have. And I think that emotional experience for me was really hard for that first year. I know, Romesh, you've said the same thing for yourself, right? When you set up FD Consulting, you took the time out, didn't you, to digest it?
Yeah. I needed to kind of summon up the courage. Kind of risk averse finance person, fall into that very cliche bucket for sure. But yeah, I really did. I needed to actually. I wanted it to be a period where I looked at everything, because I think when you decide to do something like that, or, it is a momentous decision, isn't it? And I think you should be as creative and kind of think outside the box as much as possible. And so I gave myself space because I was really tired from my prior role. I'd worked really hard, long hours for a long time, and my battery was drained. And I didn't, I'm the kind of person who, when I'm in, right? I'm all in. And I just didn't have it in me at that point. So I needed to recharge. And I really gave myself a few months, right? Don't think about work. Just don't think about next steps. Just have fun, which I did. And then, just started gradually exploring opportunities. And I was a bit off-piste with things as well, including jobs. But yeah, I kind of settled on, I think doing this is what I want. And to Kayla's point, when it starts to feel right, you kind of gain a certain kind of internal momentum, don't you? And that's how it worked for me. But Kayla, something I wanted to ask you was, you'd obviously worked at a number of startups or growing businesses. And what did you learn from the founders and the experiences those businesses went through on their growth journey that you've kind of now taken onto your business?
Wow, that's a great question. I mean, I have had the great privilege of working up close with a number of truly excellent sales teams. I had always been kind of, very marketing, like, don't put me in front of a conversation, don't put me in front of a live prospect. I'm not sales, I can't, it's a very different skill set. But that's been the hardest thing for me to learn in my own business, is you've got to put yourself out there as a salesperson, and just the marketing side isn't quite going to cut it. And when you've got the security of a wider team with a marketing, sales, you've got your customer support, and you've got to then learn to be all of those things, just within one person. And that's been one of the things that has really resonated with me, is how many of those founders, actually their core skill was those first few sales, that first kind of momentum, and that potentially it wasn't something that they had done before they started a business, but it's something that you have to learn very quickly. That I think has been the biggest one for me. Yes, I've been in a number of different businesses at different stages of scaling as well. So in early stage, Mike, we were kind of early stage, but with the couching of a bigger business, which was an interesting one. I've been in bigger businesses, and also I've seen that kind of scale up, messy fundraising kind of stage as well. And so, it's been great for me to be in businesses of those different sizes, but now it's great for me to be working with businesses who are facing those different challenges. So a lot of the time I will be in conversations with people who I want to work with, or who want to work with me. And maybe the founder's stepping back from a business that they've grown, they're going through that scale up, that kind of really messy middle stage. And I know the kind of marketing movements that we need to put in around that stage to start to grow that. Okay, we need to start to look at the narrative. It's been very founder led up until now. Usually that founder is really well connected in an industry, and they've just kind of naturally got the business to a point just by the virtue of being well connected and being well liked and well understood. But then you've got to write that into something that the rest of the business can replicate to keep your pipeline going. And so, yeah, I think that's really helped me as well to be in all of those different stages, to have experienced all of those different stages that I now kind of bring.
Yeah, because you understand the challenges that the businesses are going through at those stages, which helps you support them more effectively. Yeah. Something interesting that you said there, which again really does resonate, is that especially if you start off just on your own, you have to learn completely new skills, don't you? Yeah. What was the hardest thing? Yeah, you mentioned sales, but was there anything else that kind of surprised you at how difficult it was to adjust or to learn? Or did you take it all in your stride, Kayla?
Oh, I try to, but it's and I'm lucky that it's just me, and I haven't got payroll to deal with, and I haven't got other people's problems to deal with. But that may come at some point. Like, we'll see how things go. But sales is a tough one. Outbound cold is a tough one. And also, what really shocks me is my own marketing is a tough one as well. Doing my own marketing for myself. I don't know whether it's the same, doing your own finance stuff for yourself, or, but it's especially as I trade under my own name, it's very difficult. You've got to get past that cringe. You've got to get past all of that stuff. And so it's very easy to think, I'm a marketer. I've done this for a long time. I know how to grow a business. I know how to, do marketing. Like, this is what I do. But when you're doing it for yourself, very different thing.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's right. It took me a little while to realize the stuff that I was recommending to my clients, I wasn't actually fully doing myself. And I was like, okay, I've got to sort this out, because it's just 101. And you kind of, I don't know what it is. I don't understand what that phenomenon is, but you kind of, I think it's probably because I was so focused on getting stuff right for the clients that I was working with, that I didn't have the head space to look at but actually it's so important, isn't it? And that's something that I'm really looking at now, is stepping back, being strategic, being thoughtful in lots of things that I'm doing, because it's quite easy. Do you find, Kayla, it's quite easy to run around like headless chickens sometimes?
I've heard it described as spending so long working in the business that you don't get time to work on the business. Yeah,
exactly.
It's a phrase that comes out a lot with what we're talking about. And I think as a founder, an early founder particularly, it's one of the biggest things. Because you end up just panicking about sales, or you panic about something maybe that's not your strong point. And then you end up focusing on it without actually realizing, what am I doing? Where am I taking this business? And I've had a few inflection points in the last 4 or 5 years of, am I doing the right thing? You have to properly cognitively pause and do that on the business reflection.
100%. Yeah, it's really important to put time towards, really strategically put time towards, and deliberately.
And can I ask you a question based on something you said, Kayla? Just, I know you're marketing, and we'll perhaps touch on this a bit further as we dig into marketing and not just your experience, but why did you pick using your own name for the business? Was that deliberate, a marketing decision? Was there anything cognitively, was there a logic to why you decided that?
I've been back and forth on this 100 times, Mike. I want to be honest.
Great question then.
Oh, yeah.
I've been back and forth with it 100 times. And I spoke to a lot of people, and everyone was like, you've got a really memorable name. So, like, if you're going to use anything, like, it's a good thing to use. The alliteration, I call it my superhero name, but it's because the Peter Parker and Lex Luthor and
I was definitely thinking that. Yeah, really good.
I've not got the same ability with my very average name.
But yeah, so that's a reason. And part of the reason was I don't have time to make this perfect. I just have to get something out there or I will never do it. And so it was kind of a get something out there, build something, trade under my own name for now. And then maybe one day, you know, we'll build something that feels bigger and is bigger and has its own existence. But yes, I don't know how people decide. I don't know how people decide on a name. Again, that's another thing that I've been back and forth on lots and lots of times in my, year and a half of doing this. But yeah, you know, a conscious decision from me, certainly in the beginning, to trade on the relationships and the reputation that I built up until that point. Because, you know, one of the things I say is I was lucky in the beginning. You know, lots of people wanted to work with me, but it's not luck, really. I've done a good job. People know me by the work that I've done. They trust me. I've spent 20 years building bridges. And so it's easy to be like, oh, you know, my network, they were so nice, they worked with me. But actually, you need to recognize that is a brand. That's a brand that you've built. That's a reputation that you've built. And to do something else is starting again, potentially. So, yeah, it's a conscious decision in that way.
It's lovely, actually, because it's very personal, isn't it? I think there's it's just very human. It's very, hey, you know, I'm going to be your advisor. It's interesting to me because it's made me just think right now, you know, why did I, you know, so my business is the FD consultant. I went the opposite way.
You went very literal.
Yeah. I think I guess I'd always had this hope to grow beyond me, and therefore, and certainly with my surname, it wasn't going to work in the same way, right? So yeah, that's interesting.
I'm reflecting the Kayla's nice articulation of your superhero name, and then you've gone quite literal with yours, and then mine is very abstract, and you two know me well enough to know that that's perhaps sums us up. And my name's always abstract, but I'm spinning out a couple of companies right now, and as a team we play this game, but we're naming them all after animals, and we've just gone complete because it's so hard to name a business these days. Everything's taken. You can't register it. How do you create a unique identifier? How do you create something that it can build off a brand? Yeah, really hard.
Yeah, and content studios particularly they're just really clever, and they've thought of all the names, you know.
Yeah.
So I have looked at that, and it's something that I've been around, and I probably do. You know, I've got 2 or 3 names filed away somewhere, maybe for later use. But.
Something up your sleeve. I like that. But returning to that theme of, you know, having so much to do, I mean, you've got additional layers here, which is not uncommon, but I'd love to understand how you are dealing with having your own business and also juggling your responsibilities as a parent, you know, with a young family.
Actually, it's 2 kids, 2 cats, and a puppy at the moment, Romesh. And it is a lot. Okay.
Wow. Hardcore.
But you know that it's all part of the game, isn't it? And it's partly the flexibility that it does allow me to have around my hours. And if I want to pick up work in the evening or early in the morning, as the puppy is currently allowing me to do, it's such a gift. Then I can do that, you know, and it's part of that flexibility that's the way it allows it to work better, actually. You know, I think a lot of people come into freelancing, consulting, running their own business, independent business with rose-tinted glasses about how that flexibility is going to be. I can be my own boss, I can work my own hours, but you still have to do the hours and you still have to deliver the work, and you can, be swapped out very quickly for someone else if you don't. But I like that kind of pressure. It's the kind of pressure that I like. And I know that it's all working towards something that is for me, that I'm building. It's not adding fuel to someone else's rocket ship at this point, which is important to me. And so, yeah, that side of things is a juggle and is a bit of a mission at times, especially when, like last summer, I had sold every single one of my hours, and I did not factor in the summer holidays. And just it was busy, but that's what this work is. It's often very up and down, and you have to take the ups and downs. Yeah, I love the flexibility, and that's definitely one of the reasons why I got into doing what I do. And it's also, it's also appreciated by my clients that I can jump on things quicker, and that, there are certain times and certain turnarounds. But yeah, I mean, that's everything.
How do you find the emotional experience? Because you talked about the ups and downs. Have you found that surprising, moving from a corporate role or a working and founder or an employed role to owning the business yourself?
I think it hasn't affected me as much as I thought it might.
Amazing.
And I think that the fear of it is quite often worse than the actual reality.
Interesting.
Yeah, again, it's hard work. I've worked hard. It's a hustle all the time, even in those, and especially in those quieter moments, right? Where's the next thing going to come from? What am I going to do? Do I need to get out and do networking? What's going to work? What's going to be my silver bullet? That's the thing that's going to work and get me my next client. But it hasn't affected me as much as I potentially thought it would, because I think that the worry about it is always more when you're in that stable, secure job, you're in that, lovely salary, and you're kind of thinking about making the move. And 10 years ago, it would have made me feel sick trying to even think about doing something like this. But you have to kind of stand in your own confidence at some point and say, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, very good. Very good. I agree. Touching on, you work in an industry that's marketing that's being, I wouldn't say disrupted, but having to adapt very quickly right now. As ever, right? What's your current view on trends in marketing and what's going on in the marketing sector?
So I think, I've always describe myself as a content specialist, kind of inside a marketing generalist, right? So I've done both of those roles. I've always done writing. I've always done, produced content. And when I first started in marketing, it was I was working for a big big bank. And back then in marketing, you got one chance. And so, there were weeks and months spent on the right shade of green and the right picture that we're going to use in this particular campaign. And, it was very much because you had to decide if you're dropping $1 million on the next big brand campaign, you've got to decide there and then. And so nothing kind of gets done until everything's ready. Whereas now, the biggest change that I've seen in that time is you've got options. You can spin up 10 different versions of an ad, 20, 100, and you can go and test them, and you can see in real time, live, what's going to come back and what's going to land. You can get that feedback loop much more quickly. And so that's what really kind of fires me up about a lot of what I do, is to be able to see that kind of flywheel moment of, they've looked at that piece of content, then they've gone here and they've done that, they've come to the website and they've consumed, they've downloaded your ebook, and then they've they've come over here and they've watched a video, and you can see all of these kind of pieces dropping in, and then they watch that online demo on the site, and then they've actually signed up for a proper demo. You can see kind of all of these pieces falling into place for my clients, and that's the bit that I love to be able to do with content, and really be able to show what it can achieve, show the effectiveness.
Has it given you more adaptability in that sense then, Kayla? Do you think marketing is becoming more adaptable, more testing, more creative, therefore, almost in a kind of rapid way rather than a sort of traditional planning sense?
Yeah, it's definitely becoming more adaptable is a good word, and I think it's becoming, so the creativity is much more untapped. Okay, so you can try more ideas, you can try more different things, and you are able to then see that feedback in real time. It's definitely becoming more data driven. It has been for quite a while now, but with the advances in technology that we have now, there's almost no limit to what you can do with marketing data. Doesn't make attribution any easier. I think, there's certain truths that will always be truths, right? And that is, attribution is hard. It sometimes you have these kind of dark patches of, you just don't know how someone's found you, or how someone's heard about you or learned about you. And humans buy from humans. Those things will always be true, I think.
I know in the green room before we started, we talked about LinkedIn and the challenges on business to business marketing on LinkedIn, and what you mentioned earlier, the silver bullet. And is there a silver bullet? Well, is there a silver bullet for marketing now on social media and best practice in B2B? What's your view on that?
I don't think there is, and I'm going to give the most famous answer in marketing, which is it depends.
That's in any industry, I think.
Like, who are your audience? Where are they? What are they doing? What do they want to hear from you? What do they want to understand? And how do they want to be communicated with? And how does that impact them? And how does that move them into a funnel and, move them into action? And, we were talking about the silver bullet, which is the question that marketers are asked most often, right? What is it that I'm not doing? What is it that's missing? And the answer is always, it's a bit of everything, and just keep doing it. And yes, depending on your sector and your business and your specific ICP, or your specific persona that you're selling to, there will be different things that work differently and to different degrees. But it's not always the case that we find something that's working, we double down on doing that, and it yields double the results. Almost never works that way. And so, it's, I still find that making sure that you've got kind of all of those bases covered in terms of, different types of content, different ways of reaching your audience, different messages depending on what stage of like the buying cycle they're in, just then really make sure that you are kind of covering all of those bases, and just admit that there will always be a section that you will just never know where that kind of comes from, or where it is coming from. I
know one of the debates Romesh and I get into all the time, and he talks much better about this than me, but is that the need for personal versus brand. So company websites, company social media versus personal social media brand. What's your reflection on that? What's your view on that? It's all about the individual now. People buy from people.
More and more it's about the individual. And I think in B2B, that's even more so in business to business, because, as a consumer, you can buy from a brand with very little human interaction. The brand value still matters to some degree, but that interaction is transactional, and is less human. But when it's a business, a lot of that is, and particularly for the longer kind of sales cycles, for more involved purchases, that's, you know, the human element of human trust is still so important, and in my view, unoutsourceable. You know, there's no way to really shortcut that, and I think that's becoming more important. And I know that we're probably getting to it, but I think that's becoming more and more important as brands start to sound the same. You know, we need the differentiation. And so, yeah, I think that human element is really key. And when it comes to things like LinkedIn, when it comes to things like social presences, it's quite often that personal presence that will boost a brand and not the other way around. You're more likely to know and trust the person first and then the brand that they represent, rather than the other way around. And I think that is moving even further in that direction. And I think it's
building momentum then. So it's moving more into influencer type territory as the type of methodologies, in effect, even if at a smaller scale in certain sectors.
Yeah, exactly.
Scares me.
And it is scary. It means that, you know, a founder has to be more and more than ever the face of a brand and the voice of a brand, and that voice has to extend across that brand as well, because you can't just rely on the founder to tell the whole story for that whole business for the whole of its life.
So how do people lean into that humanity, Kayla, particularly if they're not necessarily comfortable with it?
Yeah, well, this is one of the things that I've been working on with some founders recently, is more and more like founders have to find their voice, whether it's what I work with particularly is writing. You know, you might have started a business in the past and never needed to write anything sort of public facing, whereas now there's a lot more onus on that. There's a lot more of kind of content creation that needs to go on by the founder or by the leaders in a business that will build trust. And this is something that I've been working on with some founders, which is, you know, how do we encapsulate their kind of essence of who they are? How do we tie that to the brand in a meaningful way? How does that influence their brand values? And how do we make sure that that is consistent across the whole of the business? Because in quite a lot of cases, especially in kind of more scale-up businesses, depends who you ask in the business, is you get a different answer in terms of what that business is about. And so, you know, there's one of the big challenges, I think, is to make sure that founders and leaders are much more vocal, really understand messaging and really understand the importance of getting that out and their story and how important that is as a package together. But then also, how do we make sure that that is flowing through the whole business, every sales rep, every email, everything that's sent out, so that that really starts to feel like one cohesive brand, the founder and the brand together, rather than just like, this is the brand and the founder somewhere over here, you know?
That's really interesting. So what I'm hearing is that applies to any size of business, you know, big corporates, not just SMEs. You know, I suppose I've felt, you know, that approach works really well in the SME space, you know, when you've got smaller or medium-sized businesses and the personality of the founder, the values. But actually what you're saying is it's true across the board, and that's fascinating. I think there's a lot of nuance as well, isn't there? Because I think there's a fine balance sometimes between being yourself but not being too personal about stuff. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a line in terms of both how much of yourself you are sharing and allowing to be out there. And secondly, the line is a professionalism line, right? And so this is what a question that I get asked a lot, which is, you know, won't it sound unprofessional? You know, won't it sound too casual? Because a lot of what I talk about within my work is let's ditch some of this complex B2B language. It doesn't matter who you're selling to. If you're selling to an expert audience, who you're selling to, they're humans, you're humans. Talk to them like you talk to a person. And the fear is that will sound unprofessional. And I think there probably is a line where you'll sound unprofessional. Most businesses never get anywhere near it. And so, it's always worth encouraging that little bit more, swapping the formal for the normal language as much as you can.
So the problem's more at the kind of at that end of the scale rather than being too personal and kind of oversharing.
I think so. It's always, I think worth, and it's a fine line, but I always find if I'm following a founder, I'm kind of engaging with the business story, I want to know more of that. I want deeper insights into what's going on and, how they're finding things and how they're building. I don't want less. Almost never. I think this person is actually sharing too much about their business. I don't want to know in that kind of detail about their life and their experiences and what they're finding tough and what they're finding easy.
I think it's really interesting because I can't play into that, as you know me well, Keller, and Romesh is always telling me off. It's I find that psychologically hard to move into that territory. And I know, Romesh, you're more open about it, but you're still on the journey, right? It's for people who are natural at it. It does take that. Have I gone too far? What am I showing? The thought of, we joked about making a video earlier, and I was like, although I'm doing it on here, it's bizarre, right? That suddenly doing a video for marketing purposes, I'm like, I'm not sure about that. It's really strange. It's a psychological barrier.
It is, and it's a self-promotion barrier for a lot of us, Brits particularly. It's true. We're especially bad at it, and I think it's one of those things that as a founder you just have to keep pushing yourself to get through, and kind of push through, because now more than ever the content is needed. Like, it's really needed to be able to grow. People are genuinely invested in business stories, and people genuinely want to connect with the people behind those businesses. And that kind of veneer of a brand, it just doesn't hold up like it used to.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. And I was just examining in my head how do I draw the line myself? Going back to the how I portray myself. And Mike's right, Kayla. So I'm more comfortable at the moment, at present. These things change. The Mike is to kind of put myself out there, but it has been a journey as well. I mean, I started off not even wanting my photo on my website. That was where I was at the beginning. But I think putting yourself out there, challenging yourself, actually you do it and you kind of break a little glass ceiling and you keep doing it, and then you become more confident. And to your point, you shouldn't be too overconfident, but actually most people's problems is far too much the other way. But it's an extremely kind of powerful process, and I've quite enjoyed the challenge in many ways. And I think for me, instinctively, what I've realized is I've learned to gauge my own reactions to different types of marketing, and I've learned to follow my instincts with that. So whenever I'm looking to do a post or to do a campaign or any kind of marketing type activity, the first question I always ask is, how would I react if I see that?
Yeah.
And,
start. And if you've got kind of those examples of things that you've seen and ways you've reacted, because we all like to think marketing doesn't work on us, right? So there's, it's worth taking notice of those reactions, and really understanding, I've stopped to look at this. Why have I stopped? What is it about it that's made me stop?
Yeah. What's pushed me away rather than drawn me in?
Exactly. Yeah. or what's drawn me in, what's made me look away, what is it that I've liked or disliked, why has that, and a lot of marketing is about human behavior, why has that made me feel that way? And all good marketing makes someone feel a certain way.
That's a great way to put it. And are there any good, or are there any golden threads or steadfast rules which should always be followed in marketing in terms of putting yourself and your business out there?
I might have given you some 5 years ago, but I think that's all changing. I really do. It's content will always win. So it really doesn't matter the format. It really doesn't matter the channel. All of that is just tweaking around the edges. If your content is not good, you can try as many different channels, many different social media outlets, as many different ways of communicating as you want. If your insight, if what you've got is not actually worth communicating, or you're communicating it in a way that it's not landing with people, it's not going to matter what you do. And so I think keeping that in mind as the sort of North Star of everything is the quality of your content is what matters. The quality of what you have to say is what matters. And then great, blow it up and distribute it as many different ways as you want. But you've got to make sure you've got that insight first, because that's.
And does that pair with authenticity, Kayla?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, authenticity of the business or founder in doing what they say they do, right? So there is a certain amount of honesty that has to come through that. And then I think the authenticity of how well you have understood the issue that whatever it is you're speaking about, and how well have you understood your customers' pain? How well have you understood the need? It gets past, I just want to grow my business, and it gets into what is the thing that I'm helping with here? What is the real value that I'm delivering? And that's what you've got to get right, because ultimately, any marketing that you're doing, especially if you're trying to build your business with it, make a sale with it, you've got to solve the problem that person is having that day. So can you get so narrow with your insight that someone opens your email or pulls up your LinkedIn post and they're like, oh, that's me, I'm having that problem today. And that's what sparks the conversation. That's what sparks the engagement. And so, it's insight, and it's just really knowing who you're speaking to, knowing your customers, knowing your audience that sits at the center of that. I don't know. So
no, that's. I mean, it's a great answer though, Kayla. Right? So really knowing and understanding your customers just critical, isn't it? It's kind of 101, I guess.
It bleeds into AI as well, doesn't it? Really, which and I know you post a lot about it at the moment, Kayla. But the view on kind of when the content is coming from AI, I imagine that's what's causing the problems in what you're articulating right now. I suppose not necessarily how they're using AI, but the actual content being just for posting purpose rather than, for example, actual authentic insights.
Yeah. So I have a little saying that I like, which is using AI to write with is like using a supercomputer for your toddler's maths homework, right? It's completely spitting out the wrong thing for the wrong purpose. It should be the writing and the creative process is what we should continue to own as humans. I love me a bit of AI. There's things that I'm doing in my content workflows for my clients right now and for my own business with AI that I can do. I never transcribe anything anymore. I do not take meeting notes. I think in 5 years' time, we will be absolutely astounded that someone used to sit there and take minutes in a meeting and then send it around to everybody. what? And then I used to record, if I was, recording an interview or a case study, I would take notes, or I would, record it on my phone, and then I would take notes from that. There are things that it's made so much easier. I've got AI agents that are figuring out my next best articles to write for certain clients based on the gaps in their SEO and in their kind of GEO, the generative AI equivalent. So like, let's find out what those gaps are. Let's figure out what the next angle is going to be. There's stuff that I use AI for that is absolutely supercharging my content production. Writing just isn't one of them, and shouldn't be. And I think that with all of the kind of AI content that we have everywhere at the moment, I like to call it a race to the middle. It's just a race to average, because what you've got essentially is a giant autocomplete that is just building the next best word to say based on all of everything that's learned, everything that's written, and it makes everyone sound the same. In a world where we need to be standing out, and in a world where we need to be differentiating. And so, yeah, a lot of my work is on, okay, how can we use the AI to help us do the things that we can do but took a long time, or that we cannot do? And how do we then protect the creative process, and how do we then protect our identity as a brand and our authenticity as a brand from that? So it's a bit of a delicate juggling act.
And are you talking about, once you've got the creative insight, the insight and the authentic voice, in effect, or you're talking about the methodology with which you share it, or are you talking about how it's written? I'm sort of asking you quite a tactical question, but I was unsure whether you're talking about, is it whether you use video format, or how you distribute the content, or is it because the key message and then the distribution methodology? Which bits are you sort of homing in on as the creative and human-led approach?
So it's the creation, I think, if I'm understanding correctly. So, I think the message and the means of creation, like we're doing right now, this means of creation is entirely, and you might use some AI to then distribute that up, to cut it into whatever, and it's those kind of pieces. And now listen, there's a fine line here, right? We used to have video. You need a video editor to edit it. You need a designer to design all your pieces. You might need a copywriter to write your blog off the back. And so, is there a grey area? Yeah, I think AI is all grey areas. But I think as much as possible, we need to shield the creative process, what is human and what makes that engaging to other people. I certainly find it very difficult, and I think a lot of people do find it very difficult to believe that something that has never felt anything could make anyone else feel something,
That's interesting insight.
I feel like you need that genuine human experience to trigger a genuine human experience.
That's an interesting insight. And I read a really good article the other week, and the person was talking about their challenges, and it was very human orientated story, and I read it twice. Which is a game changer, right, for most of the way we read content at the moment. And you could see it was someone telling their own personal story about their business, to your point, getting under the surface of the business. And it's only now you've said that, on reflection, I've gone, that's where it landed with me, because it was a human story rather than a clever inflection of what the trends are or something like that, which is interesting, but you forget about it really quickly after.
Exactly. And that's how I find interacting with most content that is so obviously AI generated, is that you don't have a real central core point. There's a lot of and I have a whole file of this stuff where I've just kind of torn down these various pieces of content, just because they over explain. There's no central point that, and once you start to recognize the pattern in terms of what's AI and what isn't, you can't unsee it. You can't unsee it. And it goes beyond M dashes and, those sentence structures. It goes into, what is this actually telling me? What is this making me feel? And if it's nothing, then it's either just really bad content or it's AI. And look, I don't think it's changed anything in terms of, there was bad content out there before. Like, there was a lot of it. And now there's just more of it because it's just getting copied and pasted by generative engines. And you can make good content with AI, but it's back to that point. It's either good or it isn't. And no AI is going to make that better for you,
Interesting. Really interesting. Deep dive. I love the way we've deep dived a bit more on the, because we talked a lot about AI, but actually the real ability to understand how the human emotions are part of the kind of conversation and the limitations of it. But I do think your examples of workflow process improvement are the ones that we will properly see some benefits. I've played with this stuff, you know me. I've built stuff that does this. The things you've talked about is phenomenal, but it's still having the human touch at the right points.
Yes. And I hate the phrase human in the loop. I hate it.
But it is right.
But it's right. It is right.
Yeah.
And, this new technology is amazing for the things that took us so long that cut us off from the rest of that creative process. Like, that's where the essence of it is for me, is like, how much more creative could this make us by taking care of all of the stuff that was taking us all that time?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Yeah. That's interesting insight, because a lot of the jobs it's taking are the creative ones.
Yeah, we've got to be very...
There's a tremendous irony, isn't there?
I know. Yeah. But yes, it's something that I am really passionate about, and I want to build a world of writers. I want to encourage people to write. I want to really help people understand what's writing to persuade, what's writing to convince, what's writing to make people feel something, because it's important that we cultivate that. And I totally get that it's a skill that people weren't taught. I mean, Romesh, you have been in a very much a kind of financial numbers based career. You've probably never learned copywriting. And I think that's a lot of founders get themselves to that point, and it's very tempting to just go, just ask Claude to do it for me. And I love words. I've always loved words. It's something that comes easily to me, but I understand it doesn't come easily to everyone.
No, I think you're absolutely right. The key phrase for me is the race to the middle. It becomes generic, doesn't it? And actually, if you think about that, your main message, I think, in today's wonderful discussion is, be unique, be your unique self, be your unique business with your unique offering. Let's use AI as a tool, but AI is always going to push you to the middle, which is the generic. So it's taking that step back and actually changing, tweaking, adapting. I mean, what I tend to do, funny, you'll laugh at this, Kayla. My favourite subject at school, believe it or not, was actually English literature. So writing is one of my favourite kind of skills. I was at that time, I certainly wouldn't say now, I was decent at it. I kind of followed the numbers, if you like. But what I've quite enjoyed is the opportunity to be creative with my marketing, but sometimes using AI to help me with ideas or to produce something which I then kind of say, oh, hang on, that's that may be a start, but it's certainly not the finished product. And again, it has to be you, doesn't it? It has to be, otherwise.
Oh, as a former English major, that makes me very happy that you.
Excellent. Well, we'll have to have a discussion on favourite books at some point.
Oh, it's lovely. But we need to wind up now, Kayla. It's been super interesting. But quick, what's next for you and Kayla Kerr, the business?
Well, TBC. No, I mean, so I did a post recently, and I know we're recording a little bit before, but my turnover's just done its first 100,000. So that was a big moment for me. And so, you know, it's important to kind of celebrate these little moments. And that's where we are right now. And, you know, for me, it's going to be very much looking at how can I continue to expand that both for my clients and for myself, and how can I, you know, continue to push forward with this authenticity piece at the forefront. Very much not afraid of the technology, very much kind of embracing everything, but also really emphasizing the importance of keeping that creative process as something that is ours and ours alone.
Really good, really good. Romesh, any reflections from yourself?
Oh, so many. Firstly, massive thank you, Kayla. Really enjoyed hearing about your journey, hearing really your wonderful insights. I mean, the messages I'm taking: consistency, you know, quality, being well thought out about the messaging, you know, being customer focused and focusing on the solution. You know, these are all great things. Using AI as a tool and not letting AI be the boss, right? I think that's a great message and a great insight. And all of those things make complete sense to me. Yeah, really good. So I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
Me too. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kayla. I've got a couple of your nice quotes that I'm going to now put into Claude and get it to write me a Race to the Middle blog. So thank you very much for everyone listening to this, and thank you very much for Kayla joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's recording. Really good, and we're getting better and better now. We're getting more and more listeners, so please do reach out to both Romesh and myself, and thank you very much, and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Strive and Thrive.